I want to thank tonight's readers and people who've been subscribing and donating, especially the contributors for our first issue of the digital fireweed. I also want to thank the founders, Eric and David and Anne, because they were the ones that sort of started it all. And I want to thank all the past editors and staff people, because we have a couple of people here who have worked with me on fireweed in the past. And I especially want to thank our current team. And just so that everyone knows who those people are, we have the people who are here. We have Garrett up in the corner, well, of my screen. He is our wonderful web designer. He is the one that was able to bring and have all the platforms talk to each other. I don't know if anybody's had experience like with Submittable and getting all of those digital platforms to talk to each other and still yet make it look beautiful. So he has been, he has been the best with that. So I just want to thank him. We have Rachel. I want to wave Rachel. She is our archivist. She has undertaken scanning every single print copy of fireweed.
Wow.
And yes, you need to feel free to give her a silent clap, because we are in the process of uploading all of those digital copies, and those are free to the public. We're trying to create a legacy of fireweed. And I want to thank Harold for that too, because he gave us, he loaned us a very large portion of those print copies. So, that I want to thank Rachel for that. We also have Isa. You want to wave Isa? She is our assistant editor. She's over here in Tillamook, Oregon with me, and she's one of the instructors at the college. And so, although she's a writer and poet herself, and that's one of the reasons why I thought she'd be perfect. So she's been great and her support's been integral. Yes, give her everybody. And then we have another editor that could not make this time, but she is Katrina, and she is over on the east side of the state, and she will be our regional assistant editor, and she's going to help get interest over on that side of the state so that we're representing all of Oregon and not just one area, if that makes sense. I also wanted to thank all of you for being patient as we got started, especially with some of the technology and just kind of getting used to subscribing to something online. I know it's not super intuitive sometimes, but I think we're getting the hang of it. So thank you for being patient with that. So just a couple of things before we get started. The speakers are going to go in, or the readers are going to go in alphabetical order. As each reader is starting, Garrett is going to put their bio in the chat so that you can kind of get a little snapshot of what their bio is like. Again, all this will be recorded along with the chat, so just know that it'll be accessible on our website. And if you haven't done a reading, I'm sure all of you know this little trick, but if you put up in the right-hand corner, usually of Zoom, if you put your speaker on speaker view, or and how you see this, it's generally a little bit more pleasurable, and that way the person who is talking is what you see versus the gallery. But if you want to see everybody, that's fine too, but that's just up to you. And just make sure that it looks like you're all muted. And I fully expect my cat any second. Every time I'm on Zoom, she's like right here, so be watching for her. And then if you would, I want to have enough time to have a little Q&A at the end for the readers or for us. So if you have questions, if you can kind of hold on to those until the very end, and then we can have those comments appear in the chat at the end. So Garrett, did I forget anything? Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. And our first reader is Harold. How long have we known each other? It's been a very long time.
At least 25 years.
Yes. Yeah. So my dear friend Harold is going to get us started, and his bio is in the chat, and I'm going to be quiet now.
Okay. I guess that means I start. It's great to see Fireweed back in business, spreading the good word. I'm going to read three things. The first one is actually for a musician. I call it Air Over Jordan, for Jacques Lussier, who died in 2019, 1934, 2019. We were about the same model, so he got my attention for more than a couple of reasons. He's a great composer, French. He usually played in a trio format with a great drummer and bass player. And their specialty was integrating jazz and classical, mainly Baroque. I listen almost daily to his jazz improvisations with Bach stuff, and it's been at least life-sustaining. It's hard for me to separate music and poetry, and I've always felt a certain completeness from listening to Lussier. He's worth a listen, especially if you enjoy Bach and some of that other Baroque stuff. Listening to his improvisations with his trio are just wonderful. This is Air Over Jordan. Out of maternal vastness, drifting, silent pianoforte. Ripples animate chunks of honeycomb down the Milky Way. Where do it all finger from? Such hip knuckling. Out of nowhere, no doubt. Out of so far out, might as well be nowhere. Nowhere so dear. Endless leisure for the ear. Oh, the silence, flooded by the beginning hums ever after. Rocking in the bones of tomato vines. Atomizing habits of ice with unity and justice for some. In the air's dusty chains of grace, oh, the mad joy, the contained juke, oh, the radiance of your barbecue sprinkled with holy notes, oh, the kissing of cause and effect. Air Over Jordan. Early on in the pandemic, as things were kind of soaking in, back in July of 2020, I wrote this thing, not published, and then it's called Down in the Valley, My Oregon. And then you might have noticed within the last few months, there was a little uprising against the lyrics of the Oregon State song, which is no worse than a lot of state songs. If you ever listen to those things, it's really rather scary as far as I'm concerned. Land of the empire builders, we here now. Try imagining the consciousness, love, out of which that song came, that teaches school children to sing it. Conquered and held by free men. By the time I bust down across the Columbia to strengthen my ABCs, I didn't have to get permission from the white-headed eagle to be in the territory. Didn't have to show up every 6 months to receive 39 lashes if my brown butt was still there. Fairest and the best. But I did have to dodge the red-headed overseer who invited me not to show up for student teaching, like I was somebody's university hoop hire, not wired for Chaucer, Coleridge, Keats. prelude to decades of dumb shit presumption on sidewalks and streets, mountains, waterfalls, fervent evergreens, with me down in this shady Vatsad. Yea, with me, Bach, Handel, Louis, Thelonious and Miles, flesh-beating anthems and biting bugs. Cool, but still, we got this blustery tramp, mondial boogeyman, fronting a tone-deaf chorus, waving his busted niblick. Blessed by the blood of martyrs, Billy, Lady Gaga, Lizzo, Ms. Merkel, and ministers of grace, defend us. Oh yeah, I dig the rain. Down in the valley of my Oregon. Old little town. The incident or the action was a fairly common sort of thing, I guess, in the South, especially. And there's sort of an archetypical one in The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. But this was in my good old hometown back in the day. Old little town. Call me Black. Call the kid from the reservation Red. Call my buddy Delwyn White. Call Eugene, my friend, also white. Call us 4th and 5th grade boys who went to the YMCA to learn basketball during our Christmas break. There was war in the Pacific. After that Saturday's practice, Gus told us the bulgy gray-haired man in suit and tie we'd been watching had a deal for the 4 of us. Across the alley at the Commercial Hotel, boxed 2 rounds for a gathering of the Knights of the Protective Order. Our reward after 2-round fights would be a fine hotel dinner. Okay? We were always hungry. Let's say I'd never boxed before. Let's say the ballroom was crowded with men too old for war. Let's say we stripped down to our basketball trunks and tennies. Let's say there were no head guards and no referee for the 90-second rounds. Let's say the gloves were weighty, plum-colored cushions. Let's say Delwyn came out swinging like a windmill. Let's say the Knights of the Order were drinking, whooping, and puffing cigars while Delwyn was kicking my soon gagging ass. After round 1, a voice bawled, "Stop the damn smoking." Let's say after round 2, I was smoked meat somebody helped to the alley for fresh air. Back inside, Eugene bloodied the reservation kid's nose that caught a smack under the eye that would leave a rosy mouse. Let's say after as we left the ballroom, I noticed a half-dressed woman, glitter in her hair, candy red lipstick, bouncing breasts, kicking her way to the ring in high heels. In the kitchen, we squared away at a table with a white tablecloth, 4 stemmed glasses of ice water, silver, and 4 matching napkins that we needed to unfold. We ate salads of lettuce and tomatoes. We ate warm buttered rolls. We ate tender brown lamb chops and mashed potatoes with seasoning that sent a hum through our collective cells. We rejoiced in wedges of cake and ice cream. We were so happy, so full. That old little town.
Oh, thank you so much, Harold. That was wonderful. Very powerful, for sure. I love that last piece. So I think next, if my spelling is correct, Donna is up next.
Yeah, I'll unmute myself then. Probably be a better reading if you can hear me. I am going to start with a poem that was written after a poem by Brendan Constantine, if any of you know him. And the poem that he wrote is called Where Do You Get Your Ideas? And my poem is called Where Do Poems Come From? Sometimes in dreams, or dangling from the tips of pine needles, like dew or tears. A sickle moon perched in my chest when I am alone and empty-headed. I found my first under a still warm sheet, read another under his thigh at the point of imprint with mine. I found one on the beach under that 5-tunnel rock there in the sand with all the sculpin and hermit crabs, but the hole bloomed with water before I could read it. I still have the rock. In my vegetable garden once, I collected October ghosts, smashed remains of sungolds, sharp spine of artichoke flowers, one still green brandywine, and there, with the delicate tomatillo skeletons, was a poem. Unwritten, of course, but like the green tomato, I was sure it would ripen. Sometimes a poem lies in wait, coiled and hissing. If it strikes, I can suck the venom from my thumb and hold a pen. I'm certain there is a poem that will answer all my questions. Like a devoted mother who, attentive to signs of distress, carries her glassy-eyed child, this poem carries the exact names of everything. It knows my name, not the one I was given, but the one I was meant to have. Thank you. This is called Epithalamion on Highway 5, and it's for Steve, who is in one of these little boxes. And it's got a quote beginning, it's got an epigraph by Edmund Spencer's from Edmund Spencer's Epithalamion. So I unto myself alone will sing, the wood shall to me answer, and my echo ring. Here I am in my car, suddenly missing us, the newborn us, on 3rd Avenue in Santa Cruz, that basement apartment, the young us, sitting on the couch for hours, reading Spencer's Epithalamion out loud. That summer listening to Talking Heads on 8-track. That apartment where I could see only a person's feet when they approached. That apartment with its damp smell and tiny closed-in walls. You with so much hair, me with such narrow hips. I was finishing school and thinking about endings and beginnings. But what was I beginning? Did we think we would stay our 20-year-old selves forever? Unchanged? My first apartment alone, but not really alone because you were there, often, the too small bed that wasn't really a bed. The sometimes lazy drip of the sink if I didn't turn it just so. The 2-burner stove. I never understood how I could lose anything in such a small room. My keys, an avocado, my copy of Richard Lattimore's Iliad. I almost lost you that summer. We both knew you'd be leaving. Once I lost a huge spider I wanted you to evacuate. I told you it looked like a shaggy mouse, but you never saw it. Like so much else in those days, it disappeared but scared me anyway. The way what's gone and can't be found can be the most terrifying of all. That was the summer you drove your Dodge Coronet to visit your family. You sent funny postcards addressed to your nickname for me, your driving adventures in Utah and Texas, sleeping in your car. I didn't know if you'd ever come back, and you didn't know either. Today I can see the wind jostling the October red leaves, and a bird, an ordinary gray bird. I see her blown sideways, flapping uselessly, and I think, is this what happened to us? Is this how we got blown sideways into our 60s? Not even a keepsake from that summer. If I move aside the piles of bills and unfinished projects to find my red copy of Spencer and let my tongue linger on the words as if discovering them for the first time, will you listen? Or am I remembering it wrong? This is the poem that's in Fireweed. Well, there are two poems in Fireweed. This is one of them. And it's called Double Sonnet in Memory of Elegance. My mother's long white evening gloves, untouched in a drawer, waiting for hands, as a labyrinth waits for a minotaur. Last night outside, I admired the spider, the symphony of its web, how any obstacle can be navigated. Cosmetics do not make you elegant. The luster light gleams. I heard there was a traveler mad with grief. I sat and waited for him in the hotel lobby, dressed only in contortions and taffeta. I wanted all of it to mean something. The Persian rug, the Miro on the wall, the pianist and his violent upthrusts of sound. First, I merely had the notion of a word. Fragments of yesterday, longing, every humming hair follicle. I left at 4 a.m. My mother's ghost would only meet me in that all-night coffee shop. Dyed blue carnations she wouldn't have been caught dead with while she lived. I was faint with laudanum, the most elegant drug I could think of. The French toast was luxuriating in syrup. My mother, a red hibiscus in her hair. The gloves glowed in the glimmering fluorescence.
Thank you. So,
Hmm?
oh, you have another one?
I do.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I have one more.
That's the one of the Zoom, it's
do.
like, oh, it's a long pause, maybe. I
Yeah.
jumped in too soon, sorry.
This is called Your Body, Still Your Body. And that's a title that is the second line of a Dinez Smith poem. Your body, still your body. It's too good to last, this early sunshine in April, this smell of cut grass morning, and this body with its mirage of infinite breaths, its lie of immortality. Your body knows its own edges, the hairs on your forearms, how they bristle in the cold. Your skin, how it loves and loses itself, how it loves skin that isn't yours. Your body knows cumin from turmeric. It knows the splinter you remove with a needle from the one that can get to your heart. It knows the moment of constriction and stoppage. Your body knows breath, hearing, memory. Your body knows sting and soothe, the graffiti of cuts on your fingers, the heat of a lover's hand on your back. Your body knows how to stand stock still and sequoia strong, and knows it will not stand forever. Your body knows there will be a time to leave, a litany of lasts, last chocolate martini, last walk on the beach, last walk in the neighborhood, last purple bearded iris and blooming dogwood, last shell cupped in the palm of your hand. It knows this delight is temporary as heartbeats. It knows there is a finite number. The body knows this even if we get lost one night looking at the halo around the moon and forget. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. So good to see you again. It's magic. Let's see, our next reader is Joanna Rose.
So thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with everybody and to have all these voices filling up the room. The first poem that I'm going to read is the one that's in Fireweed, and it's in that particular subgenre, I think, that has developed over the past year and a half that I think of as staring out the window poems. It's called Wednesday. Across the street, a woman in a window of the care home clutches her yellow bathrobe to her throat and watches. People walk past, a woman with a kid in neon pink jacket, a boy with a mohawk, a guy with a grocery sack. Who among you is hoping to fall in love again, or only going down the hill to the bus across the river? Perhaps you are among the truly blessed, thinking of other yellows you have known, or that mysterious silent syllable in the word Wednesday, or your sore ankle that says, perhaps you should stop and consider the curb. You may want to walk slower. And here a low stone wall borders a weedy yard. Why don't you sit a while and take note of how, in spite of your pain and sorrow, you love your new cowboy boots? So, as well as staring out the window, I've been doing what I've been doing a lot of for the past 40 years since I came to Oregon, and that's driving back and forth to the coast. And this next poem is, it's called After the Poetry Workshop. I've been to the Manzanita Poetry Workshop a few times, and there's your time at the beach, and there's your time at home, but there's that time out of time when you're driving. And that's really a journey unto itself. So after the poetry workshop, driving back to town from Manzanita, part of my mind stays behind in the blue and gray room at the Sunset Surf where I lived for 3 days, with the sharp smell of mold, like someone forgot to take home their tangerines and their sea damp blue spiral notebook. The 4 tangerines sitting on the kitchen shelf. And that person, I decide it was a she, because I am a she, and I'll name her Cecilia, who is the patron saint of music. Cecilia wrote about 3 tangerines for the timing and the rhyme, and the sad 4th tangerine was left out, hiding in sorrow like the 4th of 3 children, never to know how Cecilia loves the word sorrow, only that a poetry teacher has told her never to use it. And yet here it is, on page after page of the blue and gray notebook. The damp pages dry now and fluttering here on the seat beside me as I pass that little church, St. Peter the Fisherman. Seagulls line the rooftop there and the simple wooden cross, their screams a sheer overlay of sea sound, like the steel scaffolding of the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in Manhattan, year after year, over the tower, like another tower, notes of a scale, the scaffolding rustling against pale granite, and finally taken down, leaving the tower stained and naked. The highway ribbons on, a duet of light and shade to the crossroads where there is no blind guitar man, just the ghost of the single pump gas station and the old guy there who tossed saltwater taffy into the car windows. Just the decades since he left, the decades since I even met anyone who remembers him. I turn east at that memory, inland, leaving Cecilia behind, the highway going one way, ocean another way, the salt scent away, and me away, on toward the valley now, into a green smell now. Niconicum River glittering hide and seek beneath the trees, a dirt road heading off beneath the trees with a dead end sign and a raven on the sign. Once, two little girls in the back seat of a car named Fanny Fiat sang rounds. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. They didn't know any other words, didn't want to know any other words. Once there was a donkey in a hat. All the other times there was no donkey, no hat, no little girls singing. And yes, I have always known the raven may just have been a crow, but Fanny Fiat was my first car, bought for $400 from a waitress in a bar. And those little girls are middle-aged women now, somewhere in the world. I slow for the curving Quartz Creek Bridge, the blunt new guardrails not quite hiding the old wrought iron railing, little brass sign, circa 1938, and no sign of Quartz Creek below, only breeze-tossed treetops, alder and big leaf maple, only the logging truck coming toward me on the curve, and I grip the steering wheel, my knuckles whitening slightly, which is a true thing, it happens, and then the miracle of our passing. This being another day I don't die, another day to get even older, another day to count off on the gnarled fingers I once thought too gnarly for rings, how now my rings glitter in the sunlight, how once I was so afraid I would look back in the rearview mirror and see that none of it mattered. And I tap the wheel with my thumbs now, a nervous tick on the winding highway, afraid now that everything did. So another beach poem, because that's how they work. One beach poem leads to another. And I chose this one for my mother, whose birthday is this week, and she would have been 90. It's called One More Day. If I had only one day to live, I might be a little sad about missing the Taj Mahal by the light of the full moon. I hear it shimmers. And I would be sorry that I never got to see wild elephants during the dry season in Kenya when they roll in the red dust. I hear they turn pink. But I would get in my red car one last time and go to the coast. I would stop at the Nehalem Bay hardware store where I would fill my pockets with tiny brass hooks that would jingle and get tangled and are so small that they have always seemed intriguingly useless. Then I would go sit on the warm sand. It would have to be summer. I would gather all my many messy memories and feel them sift through my fingers. One summer, sailing the north coastline of Lake Superior with my parents 50 years ago, we passed a small, perfectly round Channel Island. My mother, who was not a warm person nor given to daydreaming, said, "I wish I had an island." And I said, "Dad, do you think we'll make it to Thunder Bay by midday?" And he said, "Haul in that jib line." Suppose last days were magical. Suppose I could say, "Really? You always wanted an island?" Suppose I could say, "Tell me more," instead of hauling in the jib line. Maybe even give her a small round island, last days being magical, glittery, intriguingly useless, and me being right there at the beach with sand and all that time. And I'll close with one more staring out the window poem. I'll bring it back around. This poem is called Pandemic Spring. And I'm sorry to say that I wrote it the first pandemic spring, and I could have written it the second pandemic spring too. Pandemic Spring. I sit at my desk, not working. Dust on a table across the room is a dim glimmer, and I want to drag a finger through there, a heart or a question mark, or Kilroy was here. Stacks of paperback murder mysteries threaten to tip in the corner, offering clues and a promise of justice. I order them by the dozen from the closed bookstore, online shopping only. I can read one in a single day. My friend Wendy reads cookbooks. We are all searching for something that works. The late afternoon light falls through the window onto the watercolor called Mooncalf, an outsider art street sale find years ago when I was grieving the loss of my little dog Marco, who had died after his good long life. The white donkey reminding me of him, but now because of that glare, I can't see Marco. Outside the window on the fence, a crow struts and squawks. Where is everybody? Occasional footsteps on the sidewalk, roll of skateboard, voices muffled by masks. Beyond the fence, the pink camellia drops blown blossoms, this long spring moving on. And beyond the mess of the camellia and the weedy reach of the yard next door is a little apartment building and someone else's window, a kitchen window where that someone in a familiar pose at the stove waits for a pot to boil. Another someone dipping in and out of the frame, setting the table. I don't look away. Once I would have, polite about private lives, that careful agreement of city neighbors. But this spring, I get up from my desk, move closer to my own window. Maybe they'll look out and see me, give a little wave. This spring, I am hungry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you have quite a number of coasties here who can appreciate your beach poems for sure. So, and our last reader is my friend Lex. Take it away.
Okay. The first two poems that I want to read come from Fireweed. And so I want to thank Sydney for your vision and good patience with this whole project. This one is called If the Forecast Holds. If the forecast holds, this rainy spell will lead to an infrequent snow. All colors white and all shapes softened, pristine in a blue dawn. A new year will see birthdays, new divorces, broken bones, hearts opened, hearts closed. Raspberries will fruit and apples ripen, green or speckled or red. And one late September evening, windows open, someone will be singing operatically, even the crows gone still. This and more will occur as foretold until the last day, when every bit of it slips unknown to the disappearing and final past. Though, of course, here we are, you and I, listening or reading, listening, reading, looking up from the words, even now. Portraits of the Saints. If you believe in good people, but don't believe in saints, you're left with faces composed amid the iconography of ritual and legend, a narrative that wants to be seen. I love the halos, though, how they draw the eye. Saint Catherine by Lorenzo Lotto, for example. Her tilted head is gold crowned with thorns, themselves interwoven with the string of pearls, hung with pendants of precious stone, one of them amber, another the size and color of a Pinot grape. Catherine, martyred or not, or even if she never lived other than legend, someone looks at us, young and posed as she is, as once in Venice she sat, for a painter so taken by her, he ground quartz to hardest white flour, and with it mixed his palette, where it shines yet. That any oil on panel 1522 survives now seems miraculous. Never mind how by faith or love or genius of technique, one actual person gazes, her live expression saying, or seeming to say, apart from this, I am myself, no saint, and tired of the fuss. So as a teacher in the long ago, I used to give new writers any number of prompts that might generate something. But that said, I personally don't like them much. So I'd square my own objection by saying that if something unrelated to the prompt happened to show up, go with that. This poem did come from a prompt, though, namely that poem. And that poem had to include the word cotton. This poem is called Laundry. No color, no pocket, undershirts, we called them. Common as salmon, soft, new, pristine, given later to slack ribbing around the neck, and by one or another berries or grass stained, or by spots of metallic blood, red that never quite washed out. And there's the T-poles and lines they dry on, a pouch of wooden steel sprung pins for blouses and boxers, tidy whities, bras and handkerchief squares, shifts and flannels, kitchen towels, muslin, a rose blush terry cloth robe hung by limp and footless socks. Bed linens last, sheets not linen at all, but cotton, great stiff and flapping sails to hide among or hide behind, one with a toenail hole. Hold breath, squint, look out, don't touch. It's said that an act of reading can take you out of the present and into an entirely other consciousness and place. I agree. But when you put the book down, the present rushes back. This poem starts with Emily Dickinson. It's called Amherst. I read a sunny afternoon, windows raised, a quiet Amherst room. Emily Dickinson, hers, upstairs, where once she wrote, my business is to love, and where she thought death kindly stopped. And though I know the grieved are many, yet a wild, fierce presence lives, a welcome to any flower, bird, or bee, and to any fellow human, a promise of all the intricate moves of justice, to Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, Trayvon Martin and Sandra Bland, to Ahmaud Arbery and Dominique Fells, Philando Castile and Elijah McClain, to these and too many more, and Emmett Till, killed when I was 4. So thanks again to Farweed, to you, Sydney, to Harold, Donna, and Joanna. I'm glad we can do this together. Let me close with this. It's called Let Me Tell You. Let me tell you, sometimes you want to sit on a porch, or if you have no porch, sometimes you want to invent one. And it need not be the widest veranda, could be concrete, small as it is, west facing, open to the south. And you can sit in one of the 2 chairs, June to September, a bake oven, but in the shoulder months, a warmth might rise on your trousers and coat, and so bring back a lake surface, blinding brilliant to look at straight on from the back of that boat you have rowed out, watching the dock slowly go distant against all those shore firs. Old bilge water sloshes warm on your bare feet. And in such wide quiet, you're glad for your legs and shoulders, glad for your eyes, for distance and the bill of your cap. Glad you have learned how to row like this, how to scull a circle, and so take your time rowing home. Thanks.
Thank you, Lex, and thanks to all 4 of our readers this evening. And we will do this again when we have our next issue come out, which I forgot to mention. Our next call for submissions begins January 15th and run through early February. So that will be for our winter 2022. Wow, that can't even believe I'm saying that. But anyway, issue. So we will be putting out a call for submissions for that. And so tell your friends and submit. So feel free to donate too, to help support the archive project. And before we take questions and everything, I just wanted to share what that looks like real quick, because we have, Garrett actually has updated it to show the issues that we have that are officially archived. The ones in italics have been scanned thanks to Rachel, but we're getting those uploaded. And then we have some possible gaps. So if you might have an issue that falls into a gap that we can borrow, that would be awesome. But like I said, all of these are available to the public. And I believe Garrett has even cross-referenced some of the names so that you can actually look up a name and actually see what issues that they're in. So a lot of work's been done. Garrett and Rachel have been amazing, and you can just open those. And like I said, those are free and open to the public. So Garrett, did you have anything to add to that? Or Rachel, do you want to say anything? She's like, no, I'm good.
I think you
So
covered
that's
everything. Yeah.
So if you have any questions or comments, you have a couple of options. You could put a question into the chat or any sort of comment, or you can simply do a hand raise and ask a question, or it's up to you if you have a comment, question or comment for any of the readers or for any of us.
I think I will add while
Okay.
everyone thinks about questions.
Okay.
I am going to be going back to the older issues and putting all the author names. And we're going to have like a vast database of all the authors from all the previous issues and current ones. So if you've ever published there, within probably the next month or so, we'll have like a full database of all your entries. And let me know if I missed anything. There's probably going to be a couple issues I might miss in the process. But yeah, before long, we'll have like a full database for everyone that's ever contributed. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and then our main goal is to make sure, you know, if we can get on the other side of this pandemic thingy, is to be able to start having readings throughout the state and really kind of connecting poets from all corners of the state, as well as honoring the legacy that has been Fireweed of all those years. So it's a very exciting project, and I really appreciate everybody's support. So thank you so much. And thank you again to our readers. It was a wonderful, wonderful evening, beautiful poems. And we got one question for Harold, it looks like. Harold, what was the name of that musician that you mentioned?
Jacques Lussier, Loussier. There's a lot of stuff of his online. He's really amazing. And if you love Bach, it'll be a real experience if you haven't heard it.
Thanks, Harold.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will say goodbye for now, and I hope to see some of your faces on the next reading, as well as some of your names for our next submission period. So thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate your support, and we'll see you later.